headed to Big Bend National Park from Austin in the Tesla Model 3 long range with the dogs. There were definitely some challenges in this trip. Would I do it again? No. We left Austin. It should take about 8 to 10 hours to get there, maybe more with charging. Some things to know before you go. You do need to book ahead. You're going to need to book 2 nights at the RV site, 1 night at the campground, and you do need to book your lodging in the Chisos Basin well in advance, about a year in advance. I do not recommend going during the summer, it's too hot, and I do not recommend going during school holidays. Too many people going there. The RV site's for 2 nights because you want to charge throughout the day, the second day, and I think checkout's at 11. Getting there, it's a long way to go. The main issue is from Fort Stockton down to the park. There are no superchargers around the park. We left Austin and got to the first supercharger in Junction, Texas. We got there with about 40%. We charged up to 80, stopped and let the dogs out, and there's also a dog park under I-10 at another gas station in Junction if you want to head over there for the dogs. Got back on the road. This is the next supercharger in Ozona. They've got a restroom and snacks and stuff inside, but it is at a hotel. Got back on the road again, headed to Fort Stockton. A couple windmills along the way. So you definitely want to charge to 80%. I would suggest 100%, even though that last 20% takes a while. You just want to have as much charge as you can when you get down to the park. We stopped at Silliman Dog Park in Fort Stockton to let the dogs out before we made the long trip to the park from here. Here's Ronnie trying her best to stay awake. At this point, you definitely want to have a cooler with ice and drinks in the car in case something were to happen. Here's Marathon. You can stop there, but you just never know if something's going to be closed or if they're going to be out of ice, that type of thing. I would also suggest bringing a spare tire and some blankets just in case. Here we are entering the park. We downloaded the Just Ahead app, which was really cool to use. I would also download the park map on Google Maps. That way, when you don't have service, you'll still have the map. Here we are. The entrance station was closed and the visitor center was closed right here, so we were just going to head all the way to Panther Junction Visitor Center to pay and get out and get what we need. So this little notice comes up on the screen and it's a little scary. It's telling you you may not have any charge soon, so we knew we would get there. But it was a little scary. And here we are at Panther Junction. Arriving in the Rio Grande Village area. We were going to check in, figure out which campsite and which RV site that we have. If they're not open, they'll leave a notice on the door for you. They've got showers and a store and whatnot there. So we're headed to our campsite first to set up the tent. You cannot use tents at the RV site, so you've got to go with both, but no big deal. It's about a 10-minute walk in between the two. Here we are at our site. We're driving back over to the RV area. You definitely want to bring your charging cord. They do not have the cord for you. You also need an adapter. The NEMA 1450, it would possibly charge at about 30 miles per hour if it weren't so hot. I would just really bring any charging cords and adapters that you have, just in case. We plugged in and it started to work, but then it did get a little bit too warm for it to charge properly. We ended up just kind of leaving it for the night and hoping for the best. This was the high temperature warning. It was already about 100 degrees down by the river. So this was late April, so definitely do not go in the summer. Awesome coyotes. So we waited until the sun went down a little bit, but we didn't want to wait until it got too dark because we had to walk over the campgrounds, and you don't want to probably do that walk at night. There were some javelinas right there. They got really still. They kind of look like statues, but they were fun to see. Here we are at the campsite. And there were also a lot of roaming cows, which was unexpected. The dogs were pretty interested. We did hear the coyotes through the evening, several times in the night. It was kind of scary, but it was actually really cool to hear them all howling together. We're packed in for the night here. It did get very cold. Bring extra blankets or extra pajamas. Here we are the next morning. We're walking back to check and see if the car actually charged. And it did. It charged to 99%. So I would say that there are kind of three main areas in the park, and then Terlingua is the little ghost town up top there. We've stayed there before. The three areas of the park, the middle is the Chisos Basin. Over on the right side there, that's the Rio Grande Village area. And then the bottom left, that's Santa Elena Canyon down there. You just drive down that road, the Maxwell Scenic Drive. lots of stuff to do. I focus on hiking. We just did short hikes since we had the dogs. They are not allowed on the hiking trails, so we left them in the car with dog mode on, so they were nice and cool. This is the Rio Grande Village nature trail. It was beautiful. It was still nice and cool in the morning. Good views of the river. If you don't have dogs with you, I recommend the hot springs in that area and Boquillas Crossing, Santa Elena Canyon, and rafting or canoeing the river. Here we are. We drove over to Maxwell Scenic Drive. This is the Sam Neil Ranch hike. Just a 15-20 minute hike. Pretty cool. We drove a little further to Homer Wilson Ranch. Again, about a 20-minute hike. We couldn't go too far because we didn't want to use up too much battery, because we drove back to Rio Grande Village after this and charged for a little bit longer while we waited because we couldn't check into the cottages until 4 p.m. So we're back at Rio Grande Village RV Park, attempting to charge the car. It was really hot, so it wasn't charging that well because we had the AC running. We put blankets on top of the car, inside the car. It was kind of a weird situation. It was really hot. We couldn't really get out of the car with the dogs because it was too hot for them to hang out outside. So we just waited, and eventually it charged enough and we headed out towards the Chisos Basin area. And we left with about 70% and got up to the cottages, I think with about 62%. I was pretty concerned because it took us about that to get to the park. But we were there and couldn't really do much else. So we drove up. This is some of the lodging areas. And then the cottages are just up the hill to the right. Here we are at Cottage 101. These were built around 1940 by the CCC, so they're still kind of old. They've been updated a little bit, but they do have heat and fans, but no AC, but we did not need it at all. It was perfect weather while we were there. It has a nice porch with a nice view. This one has 3 beds, double or queen size beds, a restroom, refrigerator, microwave, little coffee maker. We just kind of got settled in that night. And the next morning we headed down to the main parking lot area. We saw some deer on our way to the window view trail. It's just like a couple minutes on a little paved path, but it's absolutely beautiful view. This is the window that everyone talks about here. and our plan for the day was to do the Basin Loop Trail, but we started and then we ran into a bear. I walked up to that sign and didn't really look to my left, and there was a bear right there. You can see it crawling away. We tried to stand our ground a little bit. We did back up, but we yelled and it left, luckily. It was beautiful, but also pretty scary. That was some iPhone footage, and then here's my footage. Matt wanted to keep going on this hike, but I thought we should turn around and do something else and let the bear be on its way and come back the next day. So we just went over to the window trail. This is the main window trail. It's a couple hours, but we just did the first half hour. So you're not really supposed to leave the dogs for a long period of time on long hikes or anything. So we just did really, quick little hikes and, went down to the restaurant and whatnot, and they were fine. Here's Matt at the cottage up on the rock. And we're headed out to watch the sunset. 101 is nice and private. 102 and 103 have absolutely breathtaking views, and the sunset is just gorgeous from their porches. They are right by the trail, so a lot of people are walking by. It's not as private, but they're really great places to stay as well. Here we are for round 2 of the Basin Loop Trail. Another gorgeous day. We went back to where we saw the bear. There were no bears there, but it was kind of fun to walk through again. Here's where it scurried away. We like to think that this is where one of the bears was scratching. There are only about 24 bears in this area, and they're only in the little basin area, so it was pretty cool to see one. We headed back down, got something to eat at the lodge. This is the lodge restaurant here. The whole lodge is going to be torn down in the next year or two. There are some foundation issues going on. So it may not be there when you get the chance to head out, but the new one's supposed to look similar, be a lot better for the environment and whatnot. The food's pretty good. They've got a couple vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free kind of options, but it can get really busy, so I do recommend bringing some food with you to keep in your cottage or wherever you may be staying. Or if you stay in Terralingua, book a place with a kitchen. Because all the restaurants, there are only a few. They all get pretty busy though. Here is our last sunset. So we're heading out in the morning. It's nice and cool, a little bit cloudy, so no need to use the air conditioning and waste any battery. If you do get into trouble with your battery, there is an RV park just outside the park entrance, which is still about an hour and a half away, but there's one there, and there's also one in Marathon. You could stop if you really got into a pinch. I would also suggest bringing your key card with you just in case. I'm not sure how that works if you run too low on your battery. That might be nice to have. Another note on Marathon, on the way out we did get pulled over for not having a front license plate, so something to think about if you are headed through. This is outside Marathon. It's supposedly a prairie dog colony. We stopped. We didn't see anything, but it was kind of fun to check out. And we are finally getting back to Fort Stockton to the supercharger. It said we would have about 40%. We showed up with 16%, so just glad to be there and glad to be charging. If you have the chance to do anything else in West Texas, I have a few recommendations. McDonald Observatory, you could go for a star party. Guadalupe Mountains, the Davis Mountains, there's a lodge there with a pool, no dogs allowed. Big Bend Ranch State Park is absolutely gorgeous, it's camping only. Balmorhea State Park, go swimming. Monaghan Sandhills State Park, and of course there's Marfa. We've got another video I can link if you want to check that out, just from Marfa. And they've got a destination charger there, which is pretty cool. If you do decide to go to Marfa, make sure to take the long way there between Big Bend National Park. You want to take the route along the river. It is just stunning. And final thoughts. Would I do this trip again? Absolutely not. The phantom braking from the heat and the mirages on the way was terrible. It was just too hot. The car wouldn't charge fast enough. I was nervous about dog mode and just anxiety range in general. But it was fun to do once. That's about it.